Okay. Thank you. Welcome everyone here. I've had my 2 COVID shots. I'm separated and for the sake of clarity of voice, I'm going to remove my facial mask while I'm in the podium. I also suggest that those that are speaking do the same while they're up here in the podium. And please put your mask back on and socially distance as you see appropriate afterwards. My name is Eliseo Santana. I am the president of Pinellas, LULAC Pinellas. And it is an organization that is here to protect the rights of citizens with emphasis on the Hispanic community. So I want to bring and call this press conference to order, as is our tradition. We start any meetings with a prayer. We do have
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tori Edwards. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Director of Engagement here at Allendale UMC. Whenever we welcome friends into our space, we like to start with our welcome statement that we wrote to welcome anyone into our church. Allendale United Methodist Church is a reconciling congregation. We affirm the sacred worth of all people and strive to practice Christ's example of unconditional love without exclusion. All are welcome to participate in the life and ministries of this congregation, whatever your race, ethnicity, economic situation, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, background or belief, age or condition of ableness, whether single or partnered, you are God's beloved and are welcome here. Please pray with me. Gracious God, thank you for this time that we have here today to work towards justice and mercy here in St. Pete, in Pinellas, in Florida, and across our nation. I pray that you would remind us of those who have gone before us, that have paved the way for this fight for equality and justice for all of our siblings, especially our Hispanic siblings that are here. I pray that you would give us strength and endurance to continue uphill battles to fight for justice and equality until we see your kingdom come here in St. Pete, in Florida, and in the United States as it is in heaven. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. As is our custom, we also do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will please rise if you're able to. There is a flag right in front of us with a heart, if you could use that as a designator. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This press conference was called because we have seen recently the laws that have been passed by our legislators and signed by our governor that hit me personally, directly as an attack on the civil liberties and on the right to vote. I was born in the Bronx. I'm a veteran of both the U.S. Army and the Florida National Guard and served for 31 years with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. And I have worked all of my life to ensure that all of our citizens are able to cast a vote and truly be represented in our republic, which I have sworn and I have just sworn allegiance to, and with the emphasis on liberty and justice for all. And that's something that we're continuing working with, and you're going to find that the other leadership, the other organizations that are coming here before us, we're also working in the same capacity. It is essential that we stand up and let our representative know that they need to represent us and not impose their will upon us. And it feels much like imposing their will. We will work to make sure that every citizen is able to cast a vote and therefore have a true democracy representative. At this point, I'm going to read the statement. Community leaders and other concerned citizens will speak their truth in a unified voice against the new voter suppression laws recently passed by the Florida legislators and signed by the governor. We will not stand idle while the constitutional rights guaranteed to all Americans by the First Amendment and the Constitution, in the Constitution of the United States, are being selectively stripped away from Latinos and African Americans and people of color. The purpose of these laws appear to be to rig the system, to make sure that making it illegal for Americans to even protest the injustice of this particular bill. Can you imagine that? We're here gathered to let the government know that we do not like an action that was taken, and if somebody comes into this room and becomes ruly and disruptive and starts destroying not one of us, suddenly we can all come under the strong arm of the law and be arrested for creating a riot. And once we're arrested, it's not just going before and going and being able to, as is the custom, being able to bail out, because many of us have not had any issues with the law ever. I have not. But the law requires that you stay in jail, for a period of time before you get to see the judge. That is something that is unusual and unacceptable, and we will cover that later. At this point, I am going to also mention that LULAC at the national, LULAC at the state, is combating Public Disorder Act HB 1, which was passed. This measure violates the First and Eighth and 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Also, the voting restriction law, SB 90, which was also passed, this law makes it a crime to give food, can you imagine that? Food and water to voters that are in line waiting to vote for hours. And usually where this happens is in neighborhoods of color, where they have not appropriately staffed it to be able to quickly move people through, so there's a long waiting lines, and not to be able to give them water and to provide for them is just unchristian, is un-American. Also, the League of United Latin American Citizens is against the transgender athlete ban, SB 1028. At this point, I'm going to open it up to be able to have those individuals that represent organizations, civic organizations in the area, to be able to speak for 3 minutes and speak their position. We're going to start with Lindsay Grove, President of the League of Women Voters for St. Petersburg. Lindsay? me move the stool.
Oh,
I'm a shorty.
there are days when heels help. Good morning. My name is Dr. Lindsay Grove, and I am the president of the League of Women Voters here in the St. Petersburg area. We are here today to condemn the passing of several bills by the Florida State Legislature. As a nonpartisan organization, we believe in the core democratic principles of our great nation and state. However, several bills during this session attack the very foundations of our democracy. One of which is SB 90, which Eliseo also talked about. SB 90 makes it harder for Floridians to cast their ballot, and it will negatively impact elderly voters, voters with disabilities, students, and voters of color the most. Our state league, with partners from across the state, have filed a lawsuit challenging this law. SB 90 is undemocratic, unconstitutional, and un-American. During the 2020 election, we saw the greatest voter participation in American history, and that extends here in Pinellas County as well. We saw across the state an increase both in voter registration numbers and voter participation, which is something that we should all be really proud of. Many of you here worked extremely hard to make sure that we increased our voter turnout numbers in this past election. But instead of celebrating that, our legislator focused on how to make it harder to make sure that voters could be heard. In fact, even after the 2020 election, both parties actually agreed that our election administration was a success. However, SB 90 is an attempt to eliminate Florida's growth in voter participation and take voting rights backwards in the state of Florida. If the legislature truly wanted to support the voice of Floridians at the ballot box, they could have passed many other measures, including allowing voters to register up to and including on the day of election, and also make sure that postage was paid for return envelopes for all mail ballots. However, they chose not to do that and instead made access even harder. All Floridians must have the ability to safely and freely cast their ballots so that every single voice is heard. SB 90 creates unnecessary barriers to participation in our democracy and hurt many communities that seek to have those same voices heard. Additionally, this bill would make it harder for trusted nonpartisan community organizations like the League of Women Voters to register and support voters. Unfortunately, that's not, the end of the list for egregious bills. We have also witnessed the passage of transphobic. No, it's okay.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. Among the most egregious bills, we have also witnessed the passage of transphobic and anti-protest bills in our state. The League of Women Voters will continue to fight for equality, equity, and democracy for all voters, as we have since 1920. It is our mission to empower voters and defend democracy, including educating, advocating, and litigating. Thank you.
Thank you. Your words speak what is in my heart. At this time, I want to also introduce the president of NOW, Diana, but I don't see her here. Ruth, Dr. Ruth is going to be speaking on her behalf, representing the NOW organization.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Eliseo, for organizing this event, and thanks it's good to be with all these other organizations who are for progress. Florida National Organization for Women and Pinellas Now oppose voter suppression laws. The heart of democracy is voting. We, the people, choose our leaders. There's been two types of people in American history: people who support democracy and who want all eligible American citizens to vote. The more people, the more Americans that vote, the better. There's a second type of person throughout our history. People who oppose democracy and oppose minorities, groups from voting, and also it's been true about women. But today I'm just going to look at one of those groups because we don't have time. When African slaves were forced to come to America in 1619, they were not allowed to vote. When the U.S. became a democracy with the writing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776 and we formed our government, African Americans were not allowed to vote. Thus, from 1619 until 1865, which is the end of the Civil War, over 250 years, African Americans could not vote in their own country. But after the Civil War, there was a period of Reconstruction that lasted for only 12 years when African Americans could vote, and some were even elected to office. But after the 12 years, some of those who oppose voting for minority groups created laws and practices that we call the Jim Crow laws that prevented African Americans from voting again. Literacy tests, poll taxes, intimidation, and violence. Violence to stop people from the human and democratic right to vote. So, if you look at the years from 1778 until 1965, over 85 years, again, African Americans were stopped from voting. So, in that whole period from 1619, first 250 years, they got to vote for 12, then another 85 years, they were stopped again. What happened in 1965? The Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, and the federal government protected voting. Then, you know, the Supreme Court ruled in 2013 on the Voting Rights Act and declared Section 4 unconstitutional. And again, the people who oppose voting began passing voter suppression laws. One of those laws is a voter identification. Florida passed that law since 2013. Other states passed other laws, but no one did, never has there been a bonanza like this year, 2020. Over 300 laws in 43 state legislatures, looking at those laws to pass them. Florida's passed its, Texas is working on one. This is just an incredible denunciation of democracy, and they include restricting vote by mail and other things that make it easier to vote. We should be making it easier to vote, not harder. These laws are against voting, against democracy, and against the heart of the United States of America. In fact, they are a stab in the back of America. Florida now and Pinellas now oppose voter suppression laws.
Thank you for the brief history and the message that we will not stand for this. I'm going to ask the Deputy Political Director for FLIC Votes, William Jewel Bravo, to step forward.
Good morning, everybody. My name is William Joel Bravo, and I serve as the Deputy Political Director of FLIC Votes. In 2020, we saw the flaws of a system in place. We saw an unemployment system that was dysfunctional and criminally underinvested in. We saw thousands of people who lost family members due to COVID-19, and we saw thousands of people peacefully hit the streets to demand for accountability and justice for the murders of Black and brown people at the hands of the state. On the morning after Synod, Florida woke up knowing that their taxes had gone up, that protesting was further criminalized, and that voting had become more difficult. None of which were asked by the people of Florida. In fact, quite the opposite was needed. People are and people were devastated, and the people needed relief. Instead of listening and serving their communities, the Florida GOP and Governor DeSantis took on a legislative agenda that was unwarranted and unwanted by the people of Florida. Whilst people needed economic relief, Ron DeSantis and the Florida GOP raised your taxes. Whilst people needed a better unemployment system, the Florida GOP and Ron DeSantis decided to persecute trans kids and advance transphobia in Florida. Whilst essential communities worked on the front lines and in the fields to provide you continued quality of life, they were denied access to vaccination and economic relief. Whilst local and municipal governments worked around the clock to address the issues in our local communities, the Florida GOP and Ron DeSantis passed multiple preemption measures eliminating the will of the people at the local level. Whilst people became more invested in our democratic process, the Florida GOP and Ron DeSantis further criminalized protesting and made it harder to reach the ballot box, taking us back to the Jim Crow era. Is this what great again looks like? This orchestrated agenda was to serve the interests of the conservative punditry and the ambitions of the governor who aims to challenge for the presidency in 2024. The people's mandate was clear, and yet Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida GOP continues to ignore the will of the people, excusing their actions in the legislative session with a phrase that my partner used as a child whenever she was asked why she did something wrong. And that phrase is, "because I can." Our elected officials need to be held to a higher standard than "because we can." We will expose to the people of Florida why the GOP and Governor DeSantis aren't serving you. As more and more people lose hope in Florida and its ability to address the real issues that we all face, I can tell you today that here today, because we can, we will do everything in our power to ensure that the people come first. Thank you.
Thank you. The president of LULAC Council 7265, Rey Peñas.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rey Peña. I am president of LULAC Council Central Florida 7265. I have a prepared statement I would like to share with you today. The League of United Latin American Citizens, also known as LULAC, is speaking out against the recent voting changes passed by the Florida legislature, describing them as an intentional plan to disenfranchise Hispanic Americans and Latinos from their lawful right to vote. LULAC has decided to sue the state of Florida over the laws and ask the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate the Republican sponsors of these bills for violation of civil and criminal laws. These changes are deliberately designed to affect mostly people of color and are being enacted at the direction of Governor Ron DeSantis. Voter suppression aimed at American citizens just because they are brown or black is disgraceful, un-American, and frankly, uncivilized. It is also illegal. What does this say about the spiritual faith of Republican politicians who are mistreating their neighbors and not loving them? It is very clear to any reasonable person that Florida's Republican-controlled state Senate has passed a series of unconstitutional measures. On an added note, These draconian laws infringe on and are a direct attack on one of our most fundamental constitutional rights as Americans. The right to free speech and to petition our government. These draconian laws desecrate the honor of all the men and women who have fought and died to establish and preserve our democracy. Limiting free speech, voting rights, and peaceful protest is the hallmark of authoritarian governments and dictators due to silence and oppress the people. The legacy of American constitutional government must be defended, preserved, and enhanced for our children. What the governor and the legislature have done is to dress up Jim Crow in a new outfit. It does not change the fact that we, the people of Florida, Americans throughout the country and the world, see this for what it is, an attack on American democracy. The only difference is we traded sheets for suits. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. The next speaker is going to be the senior pastor for the Allendale United Methodist Church, Andy Oliver.
The prophet Isaiah says in chapter 10, "Woe to you who make unjust policies and draft oppressive legislation, who deprive the powerless of justice and rob poor people, my people, of their rights, who prey upon the widowed and rob orphans. What will you do on that day of reckoning?" Here's one thing I know. Ron's day of reckoning is coming. The Republicans in Tallahassee, those who pass oppressive legislation like this, like this quote, "because we can" type of legislation, this day of reckoning is coming. In his audition for vice president in 2024, Tallahassee resident Ron DeSantis signed a fake bill live on air exclusively for only one cable news network. Hint, it wasn't MSNBC or Telemundo. The other networks were literally barred from being there. And likewise, the real bill will intentionally bar and make it harder to cast a vote for an elected official, which is purely a solution looking for a problem. Even Ron would agree, because it was him who touted so widely that we had our most secure election for president in the whole country only a few months prior. Why? In service of only one person with one big lie. We need a healthy Republican Party. This cult of personality around Donald Trump ain't it. We must hold our leaders, especially the ones who pull stunts just for the sake of auditioning for his friendship, accountable for this bill and all the others. Thank you for being here.
We're going to ask a community leader, Linda Stoller, to come forth and give us a few words. I'm a shorty.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Linda Stoller, and I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalists of Clearwater. This morning I'm going to read an excerpt from a statement from the Unitarian Universalist Association. In the wake of historic voter turnout in the 2020 elections, state legislators around the country are engaging in unprecedented efforts to restrict voting rights and make it harder for Americans to vote. Under the guise of renewed lies about voter fraud, GOP actions threaten to gut our democracy along the familiar lines of voter suppression and systematic racism. As Unitarian Universalists, our values hold that all people should have a voice and a vote in choosing their leaders and determining what is the best for ourselves and our community. Our principle compels us to protect the broadest use of the democratic process and remind us that the oppression of any community is a moral injury to all of us. As we witness the intentional undermining of the electoral process, our faith beckons to us to resist these attacks on democracy and protect voting rights everywhere. The Unitarian Universalist Association offers our support and solidarity to the powerful organizing happening all over our country, especially in faith communities and Black-led organizations. As 19th century Unitarian Universalist minister Theodore Parker once said, "A democracy is a government of all the people, for all the people, by all the people. Access to the ballot and fair, transparent election systems are fundamental to this vision. The UUA is proud of our Unitarian Universalist legacy of voting for democracy and voting rights. We urge Unitarian Universalists and all people to work in partnership together and to take divisive action, of a free, fair, and functioning democracy." Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. At this point, I'm going to ask Bill Johnson, President of the League of Women Voters for North Pinellas County, to say a few words. Bill? Oh, I was looking for you.
I was right under your nose.
Yes.
Good morning. I am Bill Johnson, and I'm president of the League of Women Voters of North Pinellas County. And yes, we invite men to also join the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters was founded on the principle of allowing everyone to vote. Of course, that was primarily coming out of the suffragette movement, when at that time women were not allowed to vote. This is an unconstitutional voter suppression bill. And for that reason, the League of Women Voters has joined with several other groups in federal court to ask for it to be overturned. And this has been well articulated by other speakers this morning, and I'm not going to repeat everything that they said, but I would like to point out that there is a lack of common sense in the legislature that developed this. They bypassed the normal deliberative legislative process. SB 90 was drafted independent of Florida's 67 supervisors of elections, who said this bill wasn't needed. The sponsors routinely were unable to identify what fraud or insecurity necessitated such changes. The last staff analysis was done 10 days before the end of the legislative session, and even so, it identified financial impacts. But what were those financial impacts? It was identified as indeterminate. They hadn't even evaluated what kind of impacts it was going to have on the people of, all the people of Florida. And they went through the process with strike-alls and replace in the last weeks. There was a lack of deliberative process as well as a voter suppression intent. Thank you very much for being here, and we invite you to join us in this fighting this bill. Thank you.
At this, excuse me. At this point, I want to invite Anna Lamb, president of a LULAC council. Anna? She wasn't expecting to speak today. Remember, 3 minutes, Anna.
Where's your stool?
Oh, there we go.
I need a stool too. Yeah.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, thank you, Elisa. I wasn't expecting this, but definitely we are facing. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Definitely, we're facing this horrendous decision by DeSantis. When the borders rights are attacked, we need to wake up and we need to decide what to do. This decision that was made by our legislation wasn't the best decision. When our people is being stopped for exercising their rights, we need to speak out. And I'm thankful for what we're doing now, and especially for our national leadership that we have with LULAC, the leadership that we have here in Pinellas, and the people that is coming together to speak up and say, no, we're not gonna let the government to do this to us. So we're here to speak out. We are here to be the voices for those people that are not here right now, but we will continue fighting and we will continue talking to our elected officials. They need to be accountable for these decisions. Thank you, Eliseo.
Thank you. Anna is always at the forefront. She's a fighter. She fights for our rights. Thank you, Anna. The congregational organizer for Faith in Florida, Nick Curry. Hiram, you're after that.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. So Faith in Florida is a multiracial, multi-faith organization that is dedicated to fighting for racial and economic justice from a faith-based perspective in the state of Florida. As people of faith, we have a responsibility to love and care for our neighbors. And that love and that care starts with listening and elevating the marginalized within our society. This banner behind me, Vote for Our Lives, is a result of the work we did in the 2020 election with our Florida for All partners to make sure that people knew that elections matter and the decisions made by our legislature literally have life and death consequences, especially for Black and brown people in the state of Florida. This law seeks to silence their voices. It's an attack on democracy, and it's part of an overall trend. As you've heard earlier today, HB 1, which limits our First Amendment rights to protest, limited time significantly for people who wanted to speak against it. And it just outright ignored the overall wave of opposition from Florida residents to the passing of the bill. SB 90 was rewritten in the dead of night and debated and voted on the next day. And all of this is a justification for a bill that's based on a lie that saw people die at an insurrection by a white supremacist mob at our nation's capital. Our own governor even said that Florida's elections were secure and fair. I want to put to you that leadership of the state knows that it's a lie, and that this is simply Jim Crow in a suit, to borrow Senator Geraldine Thompson's line. There are people in this country, in this state, and the legislature is echoing their sentiment that they would rather see this country burn down than share it with black and brown people. Some of these lawmakers would be perfectly happy to see us go back to the model where only white landowning men could vote. Faith in Florida condemns the passage of this bill, and we will continue to fight and work to make sure that our government actually represents the values of all the people that live here in Florida. Thank you.
At this point, Hiram Estremera is Vice President of Puerto Rico Connect. Thank you, Hiram, for coming out here. Kramer, you're after.
Good morning to all. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be standing among you all, and that we all stand united on a cause. As we look at these voter suppression laws, you know, when I was in elementary school, I believe it was, and I was learning math, they told me that if in a paragraph, one of the things was false, it made the whole statement false. Therefore, if I tell you that 2 and 2 is 4, and 4 and 2 is 6, and then I say that 5 and 1 is 7, that makes the whole statement false. We have a problem here. We not only represent Puerto Ricans across Florida, but we represent all Latinos. And above that, we represent all voters. We believe that everyone has the right to vote. In this voter, there's a restriction on water. That really hit me. Food. Today, they write this bill saying that if you're in line, no matter if you're a diabetic, maybe you have kidney issues, some kind of disability, and I see you in the need of a cup of water, maybe a Snickers bar or something like that, so you can recruit from maybe low sugar or something. It says here that it makes it a crime if I give you that chocolate bar. It makes it a crime if I give you water. I come here to present this point, and as I left my house, my wife said, "Did you take a bottle of water?" And I want to state that because we all need water. I've been a pollster in the past, and I've seen, with my own eyes, I've even had to give somebody a glass of water because of a long line standing there in this beautiful Florida sunshine sun at high degrees. And so when we look at this, somebody before me said, common sense. This lacks common sense. Somebody told us about the violence that has occurred during the history, suppressing voting. And I believe this is leading to the worst crime. Today, they sign a bill. I can't give water to somebody in line. Where are we going to go tomorrow? Are you going to tell us that we can't have pantries to feed the poor, to feed the homeless? I know we're talking about voting, but when you deprive me of that glass of water, you deprive me of voting. I don't want to go back to my car to get the water. And somebody gives me the water, I'm taking it, because I need it. It's a human thing, for crying out loud. So that, to me, tells me, as a representative, that in this bill, there are lacking a lot of common sense. I agree with that statement. So we need to stand together and make sure that this unjust bill is changed and is done right. Personally, I believe if you're wrong, and if you're right, and this is wrong. So that's what we want to say. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Hiram. Next is Kramer Velde, Deputy Director for LULAC, Florida.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kramer Verde. I'm the Deputy Director of LULAC, Florida. LULAC is a Latin United National organization. We're fighting here, and I'm very glad to have your company because this is going to be a long and extended civil fight, and we will take it to the courts. Our national office has already announced that we're going to be filing lawsuits, and it makes me very happy to see many organizations alike to join us in support and hopefully in future lawsuits to fight these unconstitutional bills that just recently passed. Are confident that our American values and the Constitution will prevail, but again, I'm glad to see the company of many organizations alike who I thank Eliseo for organizing this press conference to show and speak against these unconstitutional bills that goes and actually the people most affected will be minority communities, brown and black, who have been victims of voter suppression. And this is not something that is new. It's been happening for many years, but now it's all enacted as a law, and that is wrong. So I hope and I ask you all to join us, speak against, and do your best to fight these bills. Thank you.
Is there any leadership here from a civic group that have not yet spoken? Please come forth and introduce yourself.
My name is Larry Rankin, and I cannot speak officially for the League of Women Voters in Polk County. I'm here as an observer, as a learner, as a listener, and in solidarity with all that has been said and brought before us. So do not use my audio or video in this encounter, but I simply want to provide or offer support and to seek our common goals. But I will speak personally. My name is Larry Rankin. I'm a retired United Methodist pastor. I've been engaged in social Christian activism for over 50 years, beginning in college at Emory University in Atlanta and seminary. I was present at the funeral of Martin Luther King. The only time I had the tragic experience of meeting him was when he was in a coffin. And at that moment, I vowed and prayed that I would become a Christian social activist, and that's the way it's been since then. Currently, I'm retired. I belong to the League of Women Voters in Polk County, the NAACP Lakeland branch, and LULAC of Polk County. And so I join you as an individual in solidarity, and we will also be making certain statements over in Polk County that will be official. So thank you for the opportunity.
Anyone else? Oh, of course, Madrina, Lidia Medrano, She's the director for LULAC. Come on up, Lydia. I wasn't wearing my glasses. I can't see clearly, Lydia. Glad you're here.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Lydia Medrano, and I am the LULAC Florida District 1 Director, which is in Tampa, and I'm the past Vice President for the Southeast region, the national office. I guess I've been thinking this press conference is very important because it's trying to create awareness of the new horrible laws that are coming out of Tallahassee. And when you look at them, it's suppression, suppression, and suppression. So there is this unnecessary voting restrictions. The 2020 elections saw record voter turnout due to the expanded access to the ballot box and the vote by mail. And vote by mail is very popular among Republicans and Democrats, both. So based on unfounded claims that the 2020 election was fraudulent, which is being called the big lie, Florida Governor DeSantis signed these laws limiting and restricting Florida access to the ballot and vote by mail. DeSantis have said that the elections were a model in Florida for the nation. So why you're gonna take a medicine if you're not sick, right? You're not sick, so don't take a medicine. But he is creating this medicine, and so these new laws attempt to suppress the vote because it restricts drop boxes using early voting hours, requires a staff presence, requires to ask for vote by mail repeatedly every year, every election cycle, expand the no-solicit zone to 150 feet, not even provide water to those that are in line getting ready to vote, and even give more power to the poll workers during the counting of the vote. So because of that, we are all here and we are protesting. We have to act, and we need everybody to know what's going on because it's restricting our power, and the same with the anti-riot law, which is labeling protesting as inciting violence, inciting riots. So, you know, it's a violation of the First Amendment, of the freedom of speech, and the right the right to assemble. So we need to be aware, and we need to act right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. I want to say a few words before we finish, and let me say that I was just looking at my clock, and this is an unusual thing. Let me tell you, if you know me, you know that we never end on time, and this is going to be right on the money. You know, I'm a Floridian since 1980 when I left the U.S. Army and I came here, and my 4 children were born and living in this county. My 13 grandchildren were also born and living here in Pinellas County. I am a Floridian, my family are Floridians. And when I first got here, how many of you remember the fiasco of the hanging Chad? You know? Florida has been a laughingstock, has been a problem with voter issues since I can remember. And for the first time in this past election, it was proclaimed nationally, internationally, that we had a successful outcome. There was no major issues that arise, particularly at the ballot box. We still have issues that we have to work with in order to bring more people into the equation. We finally had a record breaking of people coming out, senior citizens, Latinos, people of color, the average citizen that was able to come out and vote, even though that we had an issue with this virus that was preventing many of us from being able to come out and vote, finally, the state of Florida did the right moves to do the right thing. So all of these laws that are being created to resolve a problem, what problem is that? Is it that too many of us are coming out to vote? Is that the problem? I wonder. Why is it that a law-abiding citizen, a veteran like me, and look at everyone in this room, by us casting and applying our constitutional rights to express our dislike or discomfort for any particular issue, because of doing that, now because of the new laws, I could be a criminal? I could be arrested? We need to stand to make sure that all citizens' rights are protected and that we make the ability of every citizen that wants to vote, that is able to vote, be able to cast that vote, because that is what we are, a democracy, a representative democracy. I want to thank each and every one of you that were here representing your groups. We would have had this room filled with different organizations that also voice the same opinion and see the problems that we're seeing here in the state of Florida. We had a short amount of time, but I thought it was important for us to come out and strongly say, "Ja, enough is enough. Respect our people. Make sure that instead of restricting the vote, you do laws that enhance the ability of all of our citizens to be able to cast their vote, and stop making law-abiding citizens potential criminals." Thank you. Thank you. There's water in the back, and please feel free. We have a few minutes to socialize. Anyone that wants to interview?
I'll head over your way. Yeah. No problem.